Hello and welcome. I am Mrs. Larson, and today I am going to be talking about the AP style paragraph for AP Lit. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. Hopefully this will start. All right, so you probably remember this graphic from the very beginning of the year when we talked about the denotation being what you see of the iceberg and the connotation is everything else that's underneath. And that should say writing and AP style body paragraph. Just caught that. All right, so I want you to take out your keys. If you need a minute to do so, please pause the video, get your keys out, open up to the page where it's discussing how to write an AP style paragraph. I encourage you to take notes on this paper so that you'll have these as you continue to write throughout this year. So as you can see at the very beginning, there is the thesis frame. You've already gone over this in class. As you can see right here, Stella, I see your cat, Plavani, and I raise you a kitten. I don't know where the other cat is though. Oh, he's back there too. He'll come out. So, Miss Plavani, I think you need to get another cat. Just saying. She needs another cat, yes. Okay. So if you look at the frame up there, you've got the title, the verb, the blank of blank, and by the style and device. In the sample here, you can see that we used an in order to phrase, which you are more than welcome to do. So there are two formats for an AP style paragraph that you can use. In the beginning, until you can demonstrate mastery, we would like you to stick to the frames. Once you have demonstrated mastery, you can kind of go off and do your own thing as you become more sophisticated writers. So, requirements. How many sentences should be in an AP style paragraph? Take some guesses. Shout them out. Hopefully, you guessed correctly. 8 to 11 minimum. 8 to 11 minimum. If you were looking at your keys, you probably already saw that answer. All right, so you want to start with your topic and your intro sentence. Consider using a transition word to begin. So we've already written our thesis. We know what 3 elements we're going to discuss in our paper, and now we're focusing on the first element. We need a topic sentence. This topic sentence should never, ever, ever contain a quote. And I shouldn't even have to say this, but should never contain a question. So here is an example. We're looking at Sunny's Blues in this example. It says, undoubtedly the most glaring symbol that represents the narrator's inability to understand Sunny's motivations and impulses is jazz music. So right here, I am going to be talking about a symbol, and I'm going to be talking about the symbol of jazz music. And the narrator and the fact that he cannot understand Sunny's motivation for wanting to pursue this as a career. So I've started with a transition word. I've mentioned my device. I've already included a symbol in my introductory paragraph in my thesis statement as one of the elements that I'm going to discuss. And I've given an overarching, kind of an umbrella statement. And then I will be able to include everything else that I want to say after it. All right. So the very next sentence after your topic sentence is going to be your embedded quote. Never, ever, ever, ever start with the quote. The signal phrase needs to come at the beginning. It is possible as you become more sophisticated writers that you can use your signal phrase at the end, but we encourage you to start with the signal phrase at the beginning. And as you probably learned in Lang, you want to use very, very few words. So never use a whole line. I would, try and keep it, between 2, 5, maybe 7 words, depending on, what you need to get the point across. So let's look at this one. When both the narrator and Sunny are back in New York after the war, he remarks that Sunny's life is weird and disordered, a problem that the narrator believes is fueled by music. So I've only chosen to use the weird and disordered. And this is going to explain the sentence that came before. So the narrator does not have the ability to understand Sunny's motivations in pursuing jazz. And he feels that Sunny's life is weird and disordered. And he feels that that is because it is fueled by music. So here is the quote that I'm going to use to prove my initial statement. Okay, next part. This is our denotative sentence. This is that top of the iceberg, if you will. The denotative sentence is going to summarize, well, I take that back, not summarize, but is going to tell us what the quote says literally. If you struggle with this, you can always say, in other words. I wouldn't use that in every paragraph or that'll sound repetitive, but if you get really stuck, you can always use in other words. For the love of donuts, never, ever, ever, ever use the word quote in your essays. So let's look at this example. This quote shows that though Sunny's passion for music brings him joy and community, the narrator can only see the negative effects of music on Sunny's life. This quote shows, oh, please, 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 please write this down. Do not do this. We want to get rid of this word quote. This isn't you. You are better writers than this. You don't need to talk about it as a quote. Hopefully you're catching my Stranger Things reference. If you haven't seen it, you need to. Okay, so really you could just cross out this quote shows and just say, in other words, or through Sunny's passion, or though Sunny's passion, excuse me, for music brings him joy and community, the narrator can only see the negative effects of the music on Sunny's life. So this sentence is my denotative sentence that tells me what my quote is saying. So if I go back, he said it's weird and disordered, a problem that the narrator believes is fueled by music. And he says that although it brings Sunny joy, all the narrator can focus on are all of the negative effects. All right. Connotative sentences. This is where the meat of your essay will be. If you look at the iceberg, that is everything down below. And that's what your paragraph is really going to look like. You've got a couple sentences up at the top, and then the rest of it is all going to be connotative in nature. So this is where you're going to dissect the quote in terms of its relation to the prompt and your statement about the human condition. And this can also be, obviously supporting, this obviously supports your thesis as well. So this could take the rest of the paragraph if you're extra amazing, and at a minimum, you want 2 to 3 sentences of solid analysis. And we will talk more about the difference between analysis and summary in class, but make sure you're looking at analysis and avoiding that plot summary, which should not be in your connotative sentences. Okay, so here's where I was talking about at the beginning. You've got 2 options. You can structure your paragraph with the topic, the quote, obviously with the signal phrase, a denotative sentence, and then the rest of your paragraph can be connotative. Or you can start with your topic sentence, your quote with a signal phrase, a denotative sentence, and 2 to 3 connotative sentences, another quote, a denotative sentence, and 2 to 3 connotative sentences. Now, please note that if you do this format, both of these quotes obviously need to support the topic. They wouldn't be 2 separate ideas. So on the handout that I've given you, you can see that there is a template for this type of paragraph that's here on the left, and there's a template on the other side for the paragraph that's on the right. And so you can choose whichever one you would like. Hey, Stella. Stella, stop it. All right, she's chewing on something. Okay. So let's look at some connotative sentences. So the sentences in yellow is the sentence with our quote. When both the narrator and Sunny are back in New York after the war, he remarks that Sunny's life is weird and disordered, a problem that the narrator believes is fueled by music. And I have here, and I probably should have made this one yellow as well, but in other words, though Sunny's passion for music brings him joy and community, the narrator can only see the negative effects of music on Sunny's life. So here are my commentary sentences. These are the things that I'm going to be using to analyze my quote up here. The narrator, by contrast, makes responsible choices, getting married, joining the army, becoming a high school teacher, but he never gives the sense that any of it, except his marriage, is actually fulfilling or brings him joy. Whereas we know that Sunny absolutely derives joy from his jazz music. Seeking joy and passion isn't important to him because he believes that it's by making responsible choices that people keep themselves from suffering. So I'll give you a second to kind of read that back over, but those red sentences are supporting my connotative sentences. Now, let's look at a sample paragraph altogether if we were including two quotes followed by connotative sentences. So we have our topic sentence that we used at the very beginning. Undoubtedly, the most glaring symbol that represents the narrator's inability to understand Sunny's motivations and impulses is jazz music. So we're going to talk about that symbol. When both the narrator and Sunny are back in New York after the war, he remarks that Sunny's life is weird and disordered, a problem that the narrator believes is fueled by music. In other words, though Sunny's passion for music brings him joy and community, the narrator can only see the negative effects of music on Sunny's life. The narrator, by contrast, makes responsible choices, getting married, joining the army, becoming a high school teacher, but he never gives the sense that any of it, except his marriage, is actually fulfilling or brings him joy. Seeking joy and passion isn't important to him because he believes that it's by making responsible choices that people keep themselves from suffering. Here is my second quote. His later dismissal of jazz musicians as good time people shows that part of his objection to Sunny's chosen occupation is his belief that Sunny is shirking responsibility and choosing an unserious life. While the narrator's concern about Sunny's financial stability is certainly genuine, the narrator also knows that he profoundly misunderstands the nature of Sunny's passion. Being a jazz musician is not something he does for a good time. It's something he feels that he has to do in order to confront and relieve his suffering. It's a serious occupation that can bring joy and relief to Sunny and to those around him. But the narrator's rigidity and prejudices mean that he cannot see this. So this is the sample from the paragraph that you would see on the right. If I wanted to take out this bottom part right here, I could extend my connotation and keep going with my red sentences for the rest of the paragraph. But in this example, I've chosen to use two passages, two phrases that I've pulled from the text and show that jazz is a symbol for the narrator's inability to understand Sunny. And we learned that Sunny's motivation is to help him deal with the suffering around him. So this would be an example of one solid AP style paragraph. Notice that this is only 9 sentences. It seems a lot longer than that, but kind of keep that in mind that you are expected to write quite a bit in each of your paragraphs when you're discussing each of your elements. Some other things to note here are that this is all written in present tense. So I would write that at the very, very top of your handout or your in the keys where you're looking at how to write a AP style paragraph. Please write that maintain literary present tense. You want to be writing in present tense all the time. Do not forget that. That is a very, very important part. We've not used the word quote in here. And we talk about the narrator, and you want to distinguish that sometimes the narrator isn't necessarily, you know, the main character. You can go into that when you analyze the actual pieces themselves. Don't get caught up on using super fancy language and really difficult words. We want to make sure that your ideas are solid, your analysis is solid, and from there you can build more clever and creative vocabulary to enhance your essay. So I believe that is all. What I would like to have you do is actually start practicing one of these using one of the templates that's in front of you. You can choose the front side or you can choose the back side. First develop your thesis and then pick one of the 3 elements that you've laid out in your thesis to actually fully write about. So hopefully this was helpful. If you have any other questions, please feel free to ask me or your teacher, and happy writing.